Have you ever looked around and thought, why does it seem like the most toxic people are also the most powerful? They manipulate without raising their voices. They lie with a smile. They drain your energy so slowly, so subtly, that by the time you notice, you're already exhausted. The truth is, in this world, evil rarely shows up wearing horns. It shows up in charm, in politeness, in words that sound helpful, but are actually meant to confuse, control, and diminish you. You see, toxic people don't always scream or shout. Instead, they provoke you. They press just the right emotional buttons until you react. And when you explode, they step back, fold their arms and say, "See, you're the problem." But here's the powerful truth the Stoics understood. No one can steal your peace unless you hand it to them. Your inner world, that's yours. Your emotions, your reactions, your sense of clarity, that's your domain, not theirs. And when you give that away, even just for a moment, you surrender your power. So what do? How do we defend ourselves in a world where manipulation is subtle and cruelty wears a mask? The Stoics never said, "Fight fire with fire." They taught us something much more profound. Respond not with emotion, but with wisdom, because wisdom is calm. Wisdom is steady. Wisdom doesn't flinch when it's poked or prodded. It observes, it understands, and it moves with intention. And let's be honest, we live in a time where everyone wants a reaction. Social media, the news, even the people closest to us. They're all shouting, all trying to stir something in us. But the most dangerous thing we can do is to lose ourselves in that noise. So today, I want to take you on a journey, not to attack, not to fight back with rage, but to rise with clarity, with strength, and with the quiet discipline of Stoic philosophy. Because your peace, your purpose, your life, it's worth more than their chaos. And if you've ever felt emotionally hijacked by someone who claims to love you, if you've ever stayed silent just to keep the peace, or if you've lost sleep wondering why someone's words cut so deep, then this message is for you. We're about to explore 8 genius tactics that don't just protect you from toxic and evil people. They elevate you above them, not through revenge, but through power, inner power, the kind that no one can touch. So take a deep breath and stay with me, because your peace starts here. Tactic 1. Master the art of silence. Let me ask you something. When was the last time someone pushed your buttons so well it felt like they rehearsed it? Maybe it was a snide comment at work. Maybe it was a family member who knows just how to twist the knife. And in that moment, all you wanted to do was react, defend yourself, explain your side, or fight back. But what if I told you your greatest power in that moment wasn't saying anything at all? Silence, when chosen deliberately, isn't weakness. It's not surrender. It's not avoidance. It's power. A kind of power that rattles those who thrive on chaos, because they can't manipulate what they can't provoke. Toxic people need your reaction. They survive off your frustration. They bait you with insults, twist your words, and then use your emotional response as proof that you're the unstable one. But when you don't give them that power, when your face stays calm, your voice still, your mind grounded, they begin to unravel. That's why the Stoics held silence in such high regard. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You always have the option of having no opinion." It doesn't mean you're blind. It doesn't mean you're weak. It means you're in control, because not every opinion needs a reply. Not every insult deserves your energy. Not every battle is worth fighting. When you choose silence with intention, it becomes your shield. protecting your peace from being hijacked. And at the same time, it becomes your sword, cutting through manipulation, disarming control, and reflecting the chaos back to the one who created it. I've learned, sometimes the strongest move isn't to argue louder, but to simply not engage at all. Think about it. How many times have you walked away from a heated argument and thought, why did I let them get to me? That regret doesn't come from losing the argument. It comes from losing yourself in someone else's storm. But silence, that's where your power lives. It allows you to pause, to observe, to decide how, or even if, you want to respond. It creates space between you and the drama, space wide enough to protect your mind, your emotions, and your dignity. So the next time someone tries to drag you into their storm, remember this. You don't have to attend every battle you're invited to. Let them talk. Let them twist. Let them throw their chaos at you. And you rise above it in silence. Because silence isn't absence, it's presence. It's proof that you are no longer available for games you never signed up to play. That's Stoic strength. Quiet, clear, unshakable. And that is how you begin to outsmart the toxic tactic. 2. Set unbreakable boundaries. Let me be clear. Boundaries are not walls. They are windows into your self-respect. Some people will tell you that setting boundaries is selfish, that it's cold even, cruel. But here's the truth. Setting boundaries is not about shutting people out. It's about choosing what you let in. And that is an act of wisdom, not rejection. You see, toxic people hate boundaries. Not because they don't understand them, but because they do. Boundaries draw a line between who controls your life and who doesn't. And when you finally say no to manipulation, to chaos, to emotional games, you take away their power. Think about it like this. If your life was a house, would you let just anyone walk in, track mud on the carpet, criticize the furniture, and demand to rearrange your space? Of course not. But how often do we allow people to do exactly that? To our peace, to our values, to our time? The Stoics taught that self-mastery begins with self-protection. Marcus Aurelius said, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." The same applies to your boundaries. What you allow shapes who you become. And here's where it gets even deeper. Boundaries aren't just for others. They're for you too. You have to set limits on the part of you that craves approval. The part that wants to keep the peace even when your soul is screaming. The part that whispers, just give them one more chance, even after 1,000. Red flags. Self-respect means saying, I love you, but I won't sacrifice myself to keep you comfortable. It means saying no, firmly, kindly, and without apology. Now yes, setting boundaries will upset people, especially the ones who benefited from your lack of them. They'll call you distant. They'll say you've changed. And you know what? They're right. You have changed. You're no longer available to be drained. You're no longer an extra in someone else's drama. You've reclaimed your role as the main character in your own life. And let's not forget, those who truly love you will honor your boundaries. They won't guilt you for protecting your peace. They'll understand it, respect it, and maybe even be inspired to build their own. So ask yourself today, where have I allowed chaos to enter because I feared confrontation? Where do I need to draw a line, not out of anger, but out of love for myself? Because when you set unbreakable boundaries, you don't just protect your energy, you invite in the kind of people, relationships, and peace that are actually meant for you. Boundaries aren't rejection. They're direction. They don't push people away. They guide the right ones in. That's not cruelty. That's clarity. That's Stoic strength. Tactic. 3. refused to play their games. Have you ever walked away from an argument and thought, "Why did I even respond to that?" Here's the hard truth. Some people aren't looking for understanding. They're looking for control. And the moment you take the bait, the moment you step into their emotional battlefield, you've already lost. Toxic people are masters of psychological games. They gaslight, they guilt trip, they twist your words, rewrite history, and then act like they're the victim. And it's all designed to pull you in, to make you explain, defend, justify. But here's what they don't expect. You refusing to play. You don't have to argue to prove your point. You don't need to correct their version of the story. Because the moment you start defending yourself to someone who's already decided to misunderstand you, you've entered their game, and they wrote the rules. And guess what? Every rule is rigged to make you feel small, confused, and exhausted. The Stoics had a better approach. They taught us that the only true control we have is over our own mind, our thoughts, our choices, our responses. Not their chaos, not their accusations. Marcus Aurelius never said, "Win every argument." He said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." So the next time someone tries to bait you into a toxic loop, stop, breathe, and remind yourself, I don't have to accept this invitation. Let them spin their narrative. Let them accuse, exaggerate, provoke. And you stay grounded, you stay still. Because your silence isn't surrender, it's freedom. It's saying, I see through this, and I'm not playing. I remember once, someone close to me used to trigger me with the same old tactic, disguising insults as concern, making me question my own sanity. And for years, I took the bait. I fought, I explained, I tried to win. But Stoicism taught me something powerful. You don't win by beating them at their own game. You win by refusing to play. You protect your energy by walking away, not to escape, but to evolve. And yes, they'll try harder. They'll escalate. Because losing their grip on you terrifies them. But stand firm. You owe them nothing. Not a defense, not an explanation, not your peace. So here's your reminder. You are not required to show up to every argument you're invited to. You don't need to prove your worth to someone who's trying to dismantle it. You don't need to scream the truth. You just need to stand in it, because the quietest no you ever speak may be the most powerful thing they never see coming. That's not avoidance. That's stoic strength. That's emotional freedom. Tactic. 4. Turn their negativity into fuel. What if I told you? Their hatred doesn't have to break you. What if I told you it could actually build you? See, life isn't fair. You already know that. You try to stay kind, stay focused, stay humble. And yet, there's always someone waiting to criticize, to doubt you, to throw stones from the sidelines. But here's the Stoic truth. You don't have to let their bitterness become your burden. You can turn it into your fuel. Marcus Aurelius said, "The obstacle is the way." He didn't say avoid the obstacle. He didn't say hate the obstacle. He said become stronger because of it. The insults, let them sharpen your discipline. The doubt, let it strengthen your focus. The criticism, let it deepen your commitment. Because every time someone tells you you're not good enough, you've been handed a choice. Either believe them or use their words as bricks to build something greater. I remember when someone close to me once said, "You'll never be consistent enough to make something meaningful." That sentence echoed in my mind for weeks. And for a while, I believed them. Until one day I realized, wait, what if I made that the reason I do show up every single day? Their voice became the spark, and my action became the answer. This is where most people get stuck. They let negativity define them. But you're here to transform it. Not with rage, not with revenge, but with results. Because here's what toxic people can't stand: someone who refuses to stay small. You want to confuse them? Thrive. You want to silence the noise? Succeed. You want to rise above the drama? Do the work quietly, consistently, and relentlessly. The Stoics weren't about shouting over their enemies. They were about mastering themselves, channeling all the chaos, all the pain, all the judgment into something useful, something greater. And that's the invitation for you right now. So the next time someone mocks your dreams, doubts your intentions, or downplays your growth, don't react. Respond with action. Let your progress speak. Let your discipline be your defense. Let your life prove what their words never could. You don't need their approval. You never did. So rise, not in spite of their negativity, but because of it. Because when you alchemize pain into purpose, you don't just survive. You become unstoppable. That's not just resilience, that's Stoic fire. Tactic 5. Guard your mind. Like a fortress, your mind is your most valuable real estate. Not your home, not your bank account, your mind. It's where your thoughts are shaped, where your peace lives, where your future is quietly being built, one belief at a time. So let me ask you, if your mind is a fortress, who have you been letting in? Because not every opinion deserves space. Not every voice deserves volume, and not every criticism is worth your clarity. The Stoics taught that if we don't control what enters our minds, someone else will. And often, those someone else's don't have your best interest at heart. They sneak in through gossip, through social media, through the subtle negativity of people who pretend to care, but slowly chip away at your self-worth. They don't need to tear you down with one big attack. All they need is a crack, a little seed of doubt, a tiny whisper like, "Are you sure you're good enough?" And once that thought settles, it multiplies. But here's the truth. You are the gatekeeper of your mind. You decide what stays and what gets shown the door. Think about it. You wouldn't let someone walk into your home, track mud across the floor, insult your family, and demand to rearrange your furniture. So why let them do it inside your thoughts? Guard your mind like the Stoics did, with strength and discipline. Choose what you consume. Choose who you listen to. Choose what you believe. And that includes your inner voice too. Because sometimes, it's not the outside world attacking us. It's the internal dialogue we never questioned. I'm not ready. I always mess things up. People like me don't succeed. Those are not truths. They're echoes of fears. Fears planted long ago. Usually by someone who didn't see your worth. But you do. So from this point forward, treat your mind like a sacred space. Feed it with truth, with clarity, with the kind of wisdom that builds you, not breaks you. Ask yourself daily, does this thought serve my peace? Does this belief strengthen me? Does this person deserve a seat in my mental world? If the answer is no, let it go. Because when your mind is strong, the world outside can be loud, but it can't shake you. That's the Stoic way. You don't run from the noise. You rise above it, fortified, focused, and free. So guard your mind. Because when you do, everything else, your energy, your choices, your future, falls into place. Your thoughts are your fortress. Protect them fiercely. Tactic 6. Forgive but never forget the lesson. Let's be honest, forgiveness is hard, especially when the wound runs deep, when the betrayal was personal, or when the hurt came from someone you never expected. But here's a powerful truth the Stoics understood. Forgiveness isn't about letting them off the hook. It's about freeing yourself from their grip. You see, holding on to anger feels like protection, like armor. But over time, that armor becomes a cage. You walk around reliving the pain, rehearsing the injustice, carrying the weight of someone else's actions. And the person who hurt you, they've already moved on. So who really suffers? That's why forgiveness is not about them. It's about you. It's about choosing peace over poison, clarity over chaos. It's the conscious decision to say, this no longer has power over me. But here's the key. Forgiving does not mean forgetting. You don't have to welcome them back into your life. You don't have to pretend it didn't happen. You simply remember it, without reliving it. Because when you forget the lesson, you open the door to repeat the same pain. But when you hold on to the wisdom it gave you, something shifts. You no longer react from hurt. You respond from strength. It's like Marcus Aurelius said, the best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury. Meaning, you rise above, not because you're weak, but because you're wise. I'll tell you this, some of the most powerful growth in my life didn't come from peace. It came from pain, but only after I stopped holding grudges and started holding boundaries. Forgiveness is not a reset button. It's a release. And forgetting, that's not grace. It's negligence. When you forgive, you drop the weight of resentment. When you remember, you carry forward the lesson. Together, that's what Stoics call emotional sovereignty. You no longer let someone else's actions dictate your inner world. So if you've been holding on, replaying the words, the betrayal, the breakdown, ask yourself this: am I ready to let this go, not for them, but for me? And when you do, don't erase the memory. Use it. Let it shape your standards. Let it sharpen your boundaries. Let it guide you to better decisions, stronger relationships, and deeper self-respect. Because real forgiveness says, I won't carry your pain, but I will carry the wisdom it left behind. And that's what makes you untouchable. Not because you never got hurt, but because you learned how to heal with power, forgive fully, but never forget what shaped you. That's not weakness, that's Stoic strength. Tactic 7. Live boldly. Without apology, let me say this clearly. You do not need to apologize for being fully, unapologetically yourself. Too many people live small because they were taught that being bold makes others uncomfortable. Maybe you've felt that. You speak with passion, and someone calls you too much. You stand up for yourself, and suddenly you're difficult. You dream big, and people label you as unrealistic, arrogant, even selfish. But here's what the Stoics knew, and what most people forget. Playing small doesn't serve the world, and it definitely doesn't protect your peace. Shrinking yourself to fit into someone else's version of acceptable is not humility. It's quiet self-abandonment. And over time, that adds up. You lose your voice. Your confidence fades. Your fire dies out not with an explosion, but with silence. So what's the alternative? Live boldly, without apology. That doesn't mean being loud or aggressive. It means being rooted. It means showing up as your true self, even when the room isn't ready for it. Because here's the thing, boldness reveals what others are afraid to face. And yes, that might make some people uncomfortable. But discomfort is not your problem to solve. Your job is not to dim your light so someone else can feel safe in their shadow. Living boldly is a declaration that says, I belong here. Not because you said so, but because I decided so. It's choosing growth over approval. It's honoring your voice even when it shakes. It's chasing the vision that only you can see, and trusting that the right people will see it too in time. And yes, boldness may cost you relationships. The people who are only comfortable with the watered-down version of you, they might pull away. Let them, because the ones who truly matter, they're not intimidated by your fire, they're inspired by it. The Stoics believed that we are not disturbed by things, but by our perception of them. So change your perception of standing out. Don't see it as risky, see it as necessary. See it as the price of living aligned, authentic, and free. So if you've been waiting for permission to stop playing small, this is it. Speak up, stand tall. Don't apologize for your ambition, your ideas, your energy. Because when you stop apologizing for being yourself, the right people start showing up, and the wrong ones fade into the background. You were not born to blend in. You were born to lead, to impact, to live a life of meaning, not mediocrity. Boldness is not arrogance. It's alignment. Live it, own it, and never apologize for it. Tactic 8. Surround yourself with resilient allies. Here's something most people don't talk about enough. You are only as strong as the circle around you. When life gets heavy, and trust me, it will, your mindset, your resilience, even your sense of direction can all start to waver. And in those moments, who's standing beside you matters more than you think. Toxic people love to isolate you. They want you to believe you're alone, that no one understands, that your strength is a fluke and your voice is too much. Why? Because isolation makes you easier to control. Doubt creeps in faster when no one's there to remind you of who you really are. But Stoic philosophy teaches us something different. While your virtue is your responsibility, your strength is multiplied by your company. You need allies, not just companions. Resilient allies, the kind of people who don't flinch when life gets messy, who don't disappear when you're down, the ones who walk into your life not just to celebrate your wins, but to stand in the fire with you when things fall apart. These are the people who challenge your excuses and speak life into your purpose. And if you've never experienced that kind of support, let me tell you, it's a game changer. But here's the truth. You don't attract resilient allies by pretending to be perfect. You attract them by living with integrity. Because like attracts, like you want loyalty? Be loyal first. You want people who are strong, grounded, compassionate. Then live that way yourself, and they'll find you. And yes, that means letting go of the ones who drain you. The ones who only show up when it's convenient. The ones who subtly sabotage your peace because your growth threatens their comfort. It's hard, especially when those people are familiar. But familiarity is not the same as alignment. Sometimes the most courageous thing you can do is outgrow the circle that kept you small and build one that reflects where you're going, not where you've been. And let's not forget, resilient allies don't always come in the form of close friends. Sometimes they live in books, in podcasts, in stories of people who've walked the same dark roads and made it through. Seek them out. Learn from them. Let their strength remind you of your own. Because at the end of the day, you're not meant to fight every battle alone. So look around. Who lifts you higher? Who sharpens you? And who makes you feel more like yourself on your worst days, not just your best? Keep them close, and more importantly, be that kind of person for someone else. Because when resilient souls walk together, they don't just survive storms. They walk through fire and don't burn. Let me leave you with this. Freedom doesn't always look like victory. It doesn't always come from winning the fight, raising your voice, or proving someone wrong. Sometimes, true freedom is quiet. It's subtle. It's the moment you finally decide, I no longer give energy to what drains me. You see, darkness doesn't need your fear to grow. It only needs your attention. And when you stop feeding it, when you walk away without apology, when you protect your peace like a sacred flame, That's when you become untouchable. The Stoics understood this. They didn't chase chaos. They didn't react to every insult. They didn't bend just to be accepted. They chose a different path, a path of clarity, discipline, and inner power. And that path? It's not loud, it's not flashy, but it's revolutionary. Because in a world that demands your reaction, your silence becomes power. In a world built on comparison, your self-respect becomes resistance. And in a world where being manipulated is called normal, your boundaries are rebellion. So if you've made it this far, if any part of you is saying, yes, this is what I've needed to hear, then let this moment be the beginning of your quiet revolution. A revolution where you no longer shrink for approval. A revolution where you set unshakable boundaries. Stand in your truth and surround yourself with people who truly see you. Where you forgive not to forget, but to move forward with strength. Where you rise, not in anger, but in clarity. You outsmart the toxic, not by becoming like them, but by refusing to give them space in your soul. And day by day, choice by choice, you reclaim the most powerful thing you'll ever own: yourself. So if this message speaks to you, if something in your spirit just clicked, type "I rise" in the Yao comments. Let that be your quiet declaration, not for others, but for you. And if you want more wisdom, more tools, and more truth to keep walking this path with strength, feel free to subscribe, only if it feels right. This space isn't for everyone. It's for the few who move with intention, who fight silent battles with unshakable grace, who know that peace isn't passive, it's a choice. You've come this far not to stop here, but to keep rising. So stand tall, guard your peace, and never forget, your light was never meant to dim for someone else's comfort.